Okay, Leanne Caron, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Always a pleasure.
Well, we were just joking about this, but there was sort of some big breaking news this week, and since you're coincidentally the first city councilor we've had on since it happened, Mayor Guthrie has announced he's not going to seek re-election. So, you know, you've been on council for the entirety of his term as mayor. What do you take from, I guess, to just put a bow on it, the Guthrie years on city council? What is the Cam Guthrie experience been from your
Uh,
perspective?
Well, thanks for asking because it's certainly, it's still recent news. And we're all a little bit surprised. At least I was certainly surprised. Cam's been in office for 16 years, 4 years as a councillor and three terms as mayor. And certainly, it's a rewarding job, but it's thankless. So I I can't speak to the decision making process for him, but what I can say is that I respect anyone who serves that long in public office. It it's a unique position to be in, to be to blame for everything and credit for nothing. I've enjoyed working with Cam, and I know a lot of people think that that we're at political odds, and I don't think that we have way more in common. And Cam and I have talked about this, but our strategic direction for the city is very much aligned. We may have differences of opinion on how to reach those objectives, but he deeply cares about this community and he puts his all into the job. So I wish him nothing but the best. I think it's time for some gratitude and
Mm.
respect for the role that he played, and I applaud him for everything he's done for our city.
As you're talking, it occurs to me, this is your 20th year on city council. Not to make you feel older or anything.
I was very young
You
when
were
I
very
started the job. I think back, like my youngest was 6 years old when I first was elected to office. So it's
so yeah, there's been some growing and changing along the way, but we've heard a lot lately, and we'll probably get into this, but the nature of the job and full-time, part-time, how much work, how many hours. But I mean, I do wonder if this is a case of you can do 20 years as a city councilor or more if we're talking about your ward mate. Um, but being mayor, in so much as being a councilor is a full-time job, being mayor is even more full-time. And to Cam's credit in talking about gratitude, he was the mayor of Guelph during like the worst like period of global instability since the end of World War II.
absolutely not just the pandemic, but the economic upheaval in the wake of the pandemic
Right.
and rapid chaotic change in policy at the provincial and federal level. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Yeah. We're gonna put on our pundit hats for a minute, but I think a lot of people in the immediate, again, this is still very fresh news, less than 24 hours as we're recording, but a lot of people have been talking about wondering if there's someone on the current city council that might step up or seek to fill the void that Mayor Guthrie is leaving. Um, I'm going to ask point blank because more than one person has said you have mayoral ambitions, has told me you have mayoral ambitions. So might you be thinking about stepping up?
I guess when you asked me to be on open sources, I probably should have anticipated this question, and it's going to be hard for me to answer in the wake of Cam's retirement because I don't want anything I say to overshadow his decision and give him and all of us time to pause and give gratitude to what he's done for our city.
Hmm.
At the same time, I've heard the same rumor that you've heard, and Guelph being the village that it is, uh,
Hmm.
rumors tend to swirl. Uh, so I've been encouraged by a lot of people over many years, and it's not why I sought office in the first place. So, but I believe you deserve an honest answer.
Hmm.
I never aspired when I entered local public service that this was my end goal, but I do believe that we're ready for some new leadership. I do believe that the role of council and the complex changes that have happened in government has eroded people's trust in elected leadership. And I do want to change that because government is us.
Mm.
We are the decision makers on behalf of the input and the trust that we're given by our residents. And we need to take that power back. And the mayor is just one of a member of a council of 13. And I see the role of council as we're the board of directors of a corporation, a
Mm.
multi-million dollar board of corporation. And the mayor is the chair. And good functioning organizations change their leadership regularly and have a succession plan for their board of directors. And I think that time is now. We do need fresh leadership. I do think that that's needed. We need to unlock innovation at City Hall. We need to move forward with a new vision of where the city of Guelph is going. So it's definitely a timely decision. So that's the preamble, a long preamble. So I apologize for that. Where I'm at in this journey is that I've taken the encouragement of those who've asked me to run. I am actively making plans to run a campaign. I don't want to make a formal announcement at this time because I want to give that grace and gratitude period to Cam
Okay.
retirement. But an announcement will be coming in the next couple of weeks.
All right. We will read between those lines. I do want to pause here just to talk about like that that element of mistrust. Just again, as you were talking, I was sort of thinking, I don't read the comments on my own Guelph Today stuff, or on the Guelph subreddit when it makes the front page of the Guelph subreddit. I also don't really like reading it on, you know, Richard Vivian's rather matter of fact council coverage. But, there is this feeling in the community, and I'm not sure it extends to those of us who are politically engaged. And I don't just mean myself. I mean like frequent flyers at city council, and you know the names and I know the names, but just
Yeah,
like people whose interactions with city council are just reading this stuff on Guelph Today. There just seems to be a general distance. And this may be a factor in some of your considerations. But how do you close that distance in a community of 150,000 people? You can't you know be have a coffee with everybody, and there is this marvelous miracle machine in everyone's pocket that tells them what's going on and allows them to make instantaneous judgments about people at City Hall and who's leading the city. So, is there a way, even just as an exercise in this election, to break down that distance, and how do you promote that trust and break down the digital divides?
yeah. I mean, certainly there's several roles that a mayor plays or a member of council plays, and community engagement is one of those. You have to be out in the neighborhoods. You have to be visible. You have to be at events. People have to be able to approach you. We're still a small enough community that people expect that,
Mm.
and we as members of council have to deliver. The second is use of technology, but appropriate use of technology. So I don't think social media is where everybody gets their news, and it's certainly not where everyone engages. So you need to have doorstep conversations. You need to, you know, be where people can speak to you in person and have those conversations. Uh, we can use technology in a different way. One of the things that we do is have town halls in person, but I think even a monthly town hall, at least citywide, for an ask anything kind of approach, so people can log in and make a cup of tea and talk to the mayor or councillor with a forum that works for them, that's accessible to where they are. Um, Different community engagement tools can use different technologies, social platforms. We have the Have You Say
Mm.
platform on the city where we put specific issues out, but I think we can do that for any issue. It doesn't have to just be a planning application. And I think the other thing we can do is, during budget and budget board,
Sure.
you we have this Q&A, this ongoing Q&A during the budget, where people write in and ask questions, counselors ask questions, staff ask those questions, counselors ask another question. And the budget board is very public.
Mm.
It's very accessible. There's no reason, because we have the software to do it, that we can't have a 24/7, 365. You won't get answers right away, but
Sure.
an online discussion board. People can get accurate information, because I think mistrust in government comes from misinformation, and
Mm.
opinions on social media and even comments on newspaper sites are not is not information that is always accurate.
Mm.
uh, and it's very partisan, very political, very divisive. And I think we can use a budget board format to have those conversations and get real information and real data, so people are more informed.
Okay. Let's dig into some issues then. Just by happenstance, I didn't even think about this as we were talking about when time to record, but it is St. Patrick's Day as we're recording, and that made me think about, issues of town and gown, and it strikes me that this may, you know, speak to the success of those efforts. I haven't heard a lot about the friction between town. I mean, sometimes on housing, sure, but in terms of just, because this is, kind of your board in particular, what as we're recording on St. Patrick's Day, what is the current, as from your observations, the status of the relationship between the city's student community and for lack of a better word, the townies?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a town and gown relationship since 1874. There's lots of stories in the historical record about way worse things than St. Patrick's Day in 2026.
Mm,
Um, so the answer to that question is that it depends on what the pressure is. So I think we benefit from economic development, and we benefit from jobs and a vibe in the city, being a university town. The pressure on housing is real. It does affect affordability. It does affect downtown and some of where we put our resources for policing and other issues related to a large young student population. But it does, it is part of our identity as a city, and we benefit from that. Where I would like to, one of the things about affordability that we talk about is additional revenue. And one of the things that we've been advocates, and we need to be stronger advocates for, is an adjustment to the heads and beds levy, or the payment in lieu of taxes. The university as an institution doesn't pay taxes to the city, but we get a payment in lieu for the number of students that are in the city. And that hasn't changed since, I believe, 1986. And there's
mm,
millions of dollars. If we just go with cost of living, the city would increase its revenue, I think, by more than a million two, I think. And that would give us the resources we need to deal with some of the issues that are currently causing friction in the town and gown relationship. I'm excited. We have a new president here at the university. We have high enrollment, and we're still a very popular university. We're still going to have those housing pressures, but we're dealing with them with the building of a new residence.
mhm.
I believe the university is planning a new residence. It's still in the planning phases. So it's going to take a couple of years for those frictions to dissipate a little bit, but I think we're making a lot of progress on that.
I want to circle around to housing, but just to what you said about like heads and beds, because I mean that's something that's fascinated me. It's hard to find a lot of advocacy or a lot of like research around it. I mean, cities have done it in the last, 10, 15 years. Um, Places like Toronto and Kingston where there are a lot of students. But the thing I will note is in terms of like getting like provincial input, like the people who would have to change it at Queen's Park. I mean, as we're recording today, Doug Ford announced you're going to be able to take alcohol to public places and public events, BYOB. I mean, how how hard is it to make something that wonkish like the heads and beds levy a priority for a government that's making, BYOB a priority? I'm not sure how you raise that alarm to the appropriate levels.
Well, we can work with our fellow university towns. I mean, there are everywhere from St. Catharines and Peterborough to Kingston and Toronto. We have to work with municipalities that are facing the same pressures. We also need to work with AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, to do the advocacy work, because that's why we're a member of AMO, is so that they can bring data to that role. We also have to look at other provinces and look at what Ontario is the outlier on a lot
Hmm.
of policy issues right now. Our municipal act is desperately in need of an overhaul on many fronts, and this is one of them. Um, the right of municipalities to charge for use of its public right of ways by for-profit gas utilities is another one. That's a municipal act matter that could bring $8.5 million in revenue to the city of Guelph. So we have to do the advocacy work. It used to be, when we talk about the complexity of the job 20 years ago, read your reports and go to meetings, be involved in the community. Now we're constantly advocating to other levels of government. We're constantly looking for other sources of revenue. We're constantly working with other municipalities and AMO trying to advance legislative reform. That's the complexity that at the times that we're in. We look at other provinces, and uh, they're further ahead than we are. So I think the answer to your question is we have to be diligent. We have to
Hmm.
be united.
All right. Well, I'm again circling back to the housing thing because one of the things that occurred to me is we had this proposal for it's essentially targeted at students, the tower at Wyndham and Fountain, and I was counting them off after the meeting how many projects like this are sort of in motion, whether it's like the new university residences, um, what's we hope will eventually go after all this time on the Royal Brock site, Alma Phase 2, potential redevelopment of Days Inn. It's something like the fifth or sixth, maybe even the seventh project of this kind. And I'm wondering, is there a danger that maybe in 5 years we have more student housing than we have students to fill it? Is that like, are we maybe overcompensating?
That is a realistic possibility, and all of these projects are all in a some form of pause right now because I think the market is going to determine whether we're oversupplied or undersupplied. Because it is somewhat of a pecuniary interest for me to talk about specific projects, I want to keep it more general.
Hmm.
But I will say that when it comes to land use planning and zoning, which is the municipal council's responsibility, it's very important that we don't people zone. When we get a project that comes to us and they say, well, it's purpose built student housing, we need to make sure that it's just purpose built rental housing and that anyone can live there, whether it's a graduate student, an undergraduate student, or a family or postdocs or any member of the community, because we don't people zone. We shouldn't people zone. And we shouldn't be pigeonholing a specific project for approval simply because the developer puts student in front of the application title.
Right. And that is something that was attacked at the meeting last week that and I think the developer said it could be used for young professionals as well. Um, all right. Moving on to some future agenda items. The council compensations coming back at the end of March, so we'll get that agenda as we're going to air on Thursday. 4% was the number. We asked staff to or you asked staff to investigate, you and the rest of council. Is there a clear sense of what the expectation is when we get that report, when you get that report?
I don't think we have an expectation of a number, but here's what I've reflected on and would like to propose for your discussion and your feedback actually
Okay.
is that in any organization, you have HR professionals, you have job descriptions, you have skills and experience and knowledge and job functions that are required of that job. You put that into a job description and then you send it off for a compensation review. And there's a formula for what that comes back at. We have a policy of the 55th percentile of comparator municipalities. It is really uncomfortable, is a soft word, for
Hmm.
council to be determining the compensation for the next council coming in. We're all uncomfortable with it because we are the public assumption is that we're setting rates for ourselves. That's not always the case. There are people who are not running in the next election.
Sure.
I think after receiving a lot of feedback and reflection that we should be the policymakers, and it should be delegated to our HR professionals. Write the job description, write it using the formula, stick to the policy of the comparator municipalities and percentiles, and we can change that within policy, and don't bring it to council at all. Just
Hmm.
bring it to council. We shouldn't be making that decision. Because what we did 4 years ago is we weren't comfortable with the number because of public perception. So we voted it down. And then we did the same thing this time around because of the community sensibility to affordability,
Right.
which is real, and I don't want to dismiss that as something that isn't a factor. But we also want to encourage, high quality candidates to run, people who have the skills and ability to look after a multi-million dollar corporation.
Hmm. The if I can start poking holes in your theory of the case, when you're hiring a chief financial officer or public relations executive VP or something like that, there's a very particular list of skills. And I'm seeing this more and more when people send out like we need members of people to join our board of directors. They're sending out lists of like skills they're looking for. Um, when that comes to city council though, and I'm sure you will note this, there are some members of city council who are very, very good at like being on constituent issues. And there are city councilors who are very, very good on like the policy and the briefing binders and the agendas, and maybe not so good on that community outreach. And some are very good with social media and some aren't. And some are, get them on the telephone, it's no problem, but send them an email, you never hear anything.
Yeah,
It's a tech matter. So it just, how do you unify something that I think when people are looking to elect someone, there's something really intangible about it. People tend to go with their guts. It's like, well, this person has done well, or I've met this person and I think they'll be good. It's not really a job description job.
it's true. We do vote based on, personality or character or ideology or something we've heard at the water cooler. The you know the hiring committee, aka the residents of Guelph, are not all looking for the same qualities in the ideal candidate.
Right.
No candidate is ever going to check all the boxes. That's just impossible. We're just too diverse a community for any candidate, including a candidate for mayor, to ever satisfy everyone's ideal candidate. I think there's a basic level of competency. Like you should know you should have, at least at the very least, have read the Municipal Act, and there should be very basic qualifications. And the compensation can be at that very basic level. And I actually agree with Councillor Gibson on comments that he made at the meeting about there are councillors who are doing more and taking on more responsibility, or responsibility has been given that to them by council, in terms of committees, boards, um, the not just city committees, but the boards that we sit on, the number of boards we sit on, how many meetings those boards have, how many subcommittees within those boards. And I think that that is what should be looked at in terms of differential compensation. Because you're absolutely right. There are counselors who don't sit on any boards. I'm a chair of corporate services. I'm also on the public library board. I'm on subcommittees on the library board. I'm on the art gallery board. So I do think that that needs to be looked at. And I think that's where we should focus our attention, and leave the basic salary at the amount determined by HR.
All right. Well, we will see what happens on a whole number of fronts.
Yeah, because we are doing a review. I do think it's time. It is. We are going to do a review of the job description, and we've talked about part-time, full-time, and I do think that there's no such thing. It's what you give to the job, and there is no part-time, full-time description in the job right now.
Right.
And 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 we do need to attract highly qualified candidates who can get the job done.
Well, 6 weeks from now, they will start applying, but we'll have to
Indeed.
call it a day for this conversation. So, Leanne Caron, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much, Adam.